this parade of liberals, but remember that the Democrat Party is becoming more, not less radical. A recent Gallup poll showing that the majority of Democrats identify as liberal for the very first time, jumping from 25% back in 1994
interesting times.
to 51% in 2017. Well, in a climate like this, what does that mean? How does a candidate like Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar fit in?
So no Medicare for all.
It could be a possibility in the future. I'm just looking at something that will work now.
Of the Green New Deal.
I don't think we are going to get rid of entire industries in the U.S.
Would you support free college for all?
I am not for free four-year college for all, no. If I was a magic genie and could give that to everyone and we could afford it, I would.
Running left, Elizabeth Warren. Well, she's obviously going for the freeloaders vote, supporting never work. It's an odd
They just
thing
really
with Warren.
love
She
spending other people's money.
Rich, but she thinks they should be sidelined in American politics.
And money.
Billionaires and big corporations decided they wanted more of the pie. And they enlisted politicians
because it don't make you fat and it don't poop all over the living room floor.
Applications from billionaires who want to run a super
There's only
PAC
one
on
thing
my
I
behalf.
like
To protect their economic advantages, the rich and powerful
Other people's
have
money.
rigged our political systems
And
as
that's the
well.
angle. Well, all right, joining me now with reaction, Monica Crowley, Washington Times senior opinion columnist Dan Bongino, Fox News contributor, and Brian Moore, the Socialist Party's 2008 presidential candidate. He was way ahead of the curve.
She came to see me a few years ago
Bernie
and asked me
just
for
announced
contributions for her Senate
that he's received 150,000 individual donations since he announced.
New York Senator Kirsten
So no matter how
Gillibrand,
crazy his ideas are,
she's a former moderate.
he seems pretty popular to me.
Me Too crusader.
Yeah, I wonder if he's
And she
going to
kind of finds
redistribute
herself
some of that
struggling for
cash to some of the other
relevancy
candidates. I
and
heard Elizabeth
compelling
Warren
rhetoric.
only did about
She even
300,000 over the first 48
inadvertently
hours, so
admitted
Bernie
there
should
is
practice
indeed a
what he
crisis
preaches. Listen,
at the
Laura,
US border.
your monologue there was spot on. There are really two lanes in the Democrat Party right now running for the nomination for 2020. The radicals and the extreme radicals. They've tried this before. Remember with Dukakis and Mondale, and then they needed the Democrat Leadership Council to get them back to the center. We've already been here. The problem is, although this may appeal to a very passionate base of Bernie bros and whatever, you will never win a general election running on hiking taxes, taking people's health care, and taking over the education system, and throw open borders in. You have absolutely no
she
chance.
acknowledges
Brian, do you feel a little verklempt?
It's easy to laugh off
You know,
this
about
parade
this,
of liberals.
this
but
whole
remember
socialist
that the
thing. I mean,
Democrat
you were
Party
kind of
is
man
becoming
ahead of your
more,
time,
not less radical.
back in 2008.
A recent
Now everyone's
Gallup
trying to
poll
ride
showing
on your
that the
coattails,
majority of
including Bernie
Democrats
Sanders, I might add.
identify as liberal.
Well, they're really
for the
not
very first time,
socialists.
jumping from
They're just
25%
reformers of
back in
the
1994
capitalist system,
to
but they're still
51%
within the
in
traditional
2017.
capitalist system. So
Well, in a
their
climate like this, what does that mean?
incremental
How does a candidate like
entitlements
Minnesota
from the
Senator
government
Amy Klobuchar
may
fit
help
in?
temporarily.
So no Medicare for
but
all.
it's not going to be
It
the
could be a
systemic
possibility in the
economic
future.
system
Just looking
change
at
that we
something
need.
that will work
So
now.
Brian, if I get this straight, I want to make sure I get it straight. They're not socialist
Would you support
enough
free college
for
for
the
all?
real
And not for
socialists.
free
Is that
four-year
where
college
this
for all.
That is correct.
So
They
you're
are.
talking like
Genie
nationalizing
and could
entire
give back to
industries
everyone
beyond
and
just
we could
healthcare.
afford
Like,
it.
okay, so just nationalizing it all and really do, kind of the thing that Marx really wanted. I mean, the true anti-capitalist stance. So Monica,
CNN were any indication?
that's probably the best news they've heard all day because Brian's
just
kind of
doesn't seem to be
putting
a lot
them
of
in the middle.
excitement for
And if you can
Midwest
figure that
Democrat
out,
whose views
this is why I'm glad Brian is on
closer
tonight.
to
But
Bill Clinton
there is a
than
new
Bernie Sanders.
sense of
But what about the so-called dream ticket
is there
of
not for this
Biden-Beto? Have you heard
ideas
about
like
that?
universal
The
health care?
old
It
guard
sounds
plus
so
the new kid
nice.
with a
It's
chance to
universal.
pick
Who
off
could be against
Texas?
that? But you eventually run out of other people's
He's going to
money.
have to make
Yes,
lots
and I've been
of
warning
promises
now for
to the
many
AOC
years about
crowd.
the
Meaning in
ascent
the
of
end,
socialism
the result
on the
ends up the
left, and
same.
it was met with eye rolling
My friends, if Democrats
at
win,
me for many
they're coming
years
to
now,
take your
Laura,
money.
and now here we
The
are,
money
which
you've
is
made
this is
in
the
the strong
defining
economy,
ideology
the
of the
money
Democratic
you've
Party.
worked really hard
I've
for,
got a
and they want
column
to
in the
blow it
Washington Times
on
coming
pipe
later
dream
this
policies
week, which
that may
talks about
sound
what the
kinda cool
left
at a
does
rally,
in terms of strategy
but
and
in practice they
methodology.
never work.
They throw these
just
extremes
really
out,
love
like
spending
Medicare
other
for
people's
all or
money.
single payer, or in the more recent case, the Green New Deal. and they don't expect it to be achieved overnight. In fact, they invite the condemnation from people like Dan and you and me because they want the pylon, so then they can affect it piecemeal, and they look reasonable and they look moderate on the way to affecting their most radical policies. This is why we are in this position now. And by the way, it wasn't Bernie Sanders who brought the party to the radical left. It was President Obama. And people forget that. They overlook that. Barack Obama is the one who moved the Democrats away from the party of Bill Clinton now to a socialist revolutionary party that has made people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez possible.
Those were really his roots individual in college and law school.
Since
he was read all the books on Obama's upbringing. That's really
pretty
more
popular to me.
Dan, who he was. I got to go back to Bernie, though.
He
was the man of the moment
redistribute some of that cash to some of the other candidates.
Sanders,
I heard
back
Elizabeth
in the
Warren
day,
only did about
even
300,000
when he was
over the
getting
first
into
48
politics,
hours, so Bernie should
even
practice
he
what he
knew
preaches.
that
Listen,
Medicare
Laura,
for all was
your
literally
monologue there
a
was spot
bankrupt
on.
idea. Let's
there are
watch.
really two lanes in the Democrat Party right now running for the nomination for 2020. The radicals and the extreme radicals. They've tried this before. Remember with Dukakis and Mondale, and then they needed the Democrat Leadership Council to get them back to the center. We've already been here. The problem is, although this may appeal to a very passionate base of Bernie bros and whatever, you will never win a general election running on hiking taxes, taking people's health care, and taking over the education system and throw open borders in. You have absolutely no chance.
Look, everyone's a poser. I'm out there. I'm the real deal. All these other kids are trying to ride on my train. He wants to kick him off, but he'll be 79. I mean,
you were kind of
ahead
of your time.
Yeah, he's the real deal. If the real deal means a socialist who just bought his third home, Bernie's probably worth close to $1 million himself. He's the prototypical limousine liberal. But you know, Bernie's onto something there. PJ O'Rourke once said, you think healthcare is expensive now? Wait till it's free. The problem with your socialist guest and socialism in general is it won't work because it can't work. How can you explain to me how people who have been in, say, the airline industry their entire lives have a hard time sometimes turning a profit? They're experts in the industry. And you think a government bureaucrat who spent, 15 years filling out a spreadsheet trying to get paid his overtime on a Friday is going to take over the airline industry and run it? I mean, it's so absurd on its face. I can't believe that socialists even dare to show their faces on TV without complete total embarrassment. And not only that, it leads to death and destruction as well. That's just another nasty negative externality of socialism.
All right, Brian, I mean, you got your chance now. You tell us where socialism is working in the world. And where has it produced positive results for a wide range of citizens?
Ideas like universal
Well, first of all, what I'm hearing so far is this politics of fear, the red menace. The red fear, they're going to take everything away from us.
I've been warning for many years about the ascent of socialism on the left, and it was met with eye-rolling.
Don't sit back there and use your usual insults. It doesn't work. I'm asking you a serious question.
This is the defining ideology of the Democratic Party. I've got a column in the Washington Times coming later this week, which talks about what the left does in terms of strategy and methodology.
Nowhere. It is nowhere in this world is socialism working. And the reason it isn't working is because the United States of America and other capitalist countries have undermined any efforts by a legitimate, democratically elected socialist to redistribute the wealth and to radically change the economic system.
But what did you do for a living? I mean, did you ever have a job in the capitalist system?
Yeah, I worked in the private sector, HMOs. Until Ronald Reagan came along and he canceled the HMO Act of 1973 and he turned it over to Wall Street and the private sector, and then you ended up with a lot of billionaires and the consumers suffered.
Socialism doesn't work because freedom gets in the way, Laura. That's his point. Socialism doesn't work because things like freedom get in the way.
Socialism promotes freedom and liberty and egalitarianism.
Capitalism and destruction and gulags.
Even he, when he's getting into politics, as long as you don't run afoul
long as you don't run afoul of the people with the real power, literally which is the upper echelon of any socialist government. They have all the perks, they have all the benefits, and they make the decisions for the little people.
That's right.
They make the decisions. That's not freedom. That's tyranny.
That's not socialism either. That's not socialism. Socialism
where is it working? Is it working in Canada? Monica, I'll give you the final say. But I'm glad Brian is on. He's apparently mad that he's changed the HMO thing didn't work out for him. God bless him. And it was a bad deal at the HMO. So now all of us should suffer. But he's mad at Monica. He's saying, look, everyone's a poser. I'm out there. I'm the real deal. All these other kids are trying to ride on my
Vladimir Lenin referred to as the vanguard. So yes, in fact, historically, that is the conception under liberal Marxism.
The real deal means a socialist who just bought his third home.
Today who are seduced by the idea of socialism only are seduced by the idea of quote-unquote equality. But what they don't understand is that because human beings are inherently unequal with different talents and strengths and weaknesses, you can only have equality at the barrel of a gun. So what they're not being taught is you can only have enforced equality with a police state. When you start telling kids the truth about that, you will see those numbers start to turn on quote-unquote socialism.
15 years filling out a spreadsheet, trying to get paid his overtime on a Friday, is going to take over the airline industry and
not blame America. But it was a really interesting conversation. This is a big issue, and I think a lot of people are now gravitating toward that, maybe not understanding it completely. Thanks so much, guys. And here's a question. Do you know the actual numbers behind the legal and illegal immigration explosion in this country? Let's say over the past 30, maybe past 50 in the world. And what about the next 30 or 50 years? We're going to bring you the truth next. Plus, a liberal coalition of 16 states are suing the Trump administration to block the president's national border emergency declaration. A constitutional expert, yes, a real one, will tell us why this should be a legal slam dunk for President Trump.
Where is socialism working, Brian? Don't sit back there.
This program is brought to you by Office Depot Office Max, where you can buy online and pick up in store in just 1 hour.
1 hour pickup order?
Got it.
Ranovi, can I have a big meeting today?
And 2 boxes of Twizzlers.
And a higher standard of living for a
the
broad
team.
range of
The team?
Go team.
Order online, pick up in an hour. Now get 25% off printing and FedEx shipping at Office Depot Office Max.
You might take something for your heart or joints, but do you take something for your brain? With an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish, Prevagen has been shown in clinical trials to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Redistribute the wealth and to radically change the economic system.
What you don't see can hurt you. Today's connected world is full of threats you may not see if you just monitor your credit to help protect your identity. LifeLock sees more, like your personal information on the dark web. And now with the power of Norton, we detect threats like ransomware too, to help protect your identity and devices. Plus, if there's an identity theft problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 million protection package. Get LifeLock with Norton, starting at $9.99 a month.
Because of my teeth, I learned to do things from a distance. We've never talked about it.
Having a dental problem is a huge barrier. The love I feel for him, I want to make sure that he was happy.
And that's when we started talking. Then I looked into the dental implant process. Now I had an option.
At Clear Choice, we believe in more of a permanent solution.
There's an alternative to dentures. With Clear Choice, it's a very fine art and science mixed.
Everything is in one facility.
We're able to do all that all in one day. You start the healing process with your teeth.
Now, she's smiling and I smile back. And now we connect. That made everything worth it. Those are the beginning for us. For a long, healthy life.
Thank you, Laura.
Laura, the elite ruling class under communism, which is what you were referring to, is what Vladimir Lenin referred to as the vanguard. So yes, in fact, historically, that is the conception under original Marxism. That's number one. Number two, the kids of today who are seduced by the idea of socialism only are seduced by the idea of quote-unquote
If you're going to follow one rule, make sure it's this one.
Is that because
Luxury
human beings are
should be lived in.
unequal with different talents and strengths and weaknesses.
Experience the Infiniti QX50 at your local Infiniti retailer.
So what they're not being taught is you can only have enforced equality with a police state. When you start telling kids
if you suffer from ED,
you will see
you've seen your doctor about the little blue pill. You know it can be expensive, and seeing the doctor and waiting at the pharmacy can be a hassle. What if I told you that a certain little blue pill just came off patent December 11th, and that same active ingredient that's in the little blue pill is now available in generic form? No more getting ripped off by the big pharma companies. Here's what you do. Just go to 4hims.com/ED and get started for just $5 while supplies last.
In this country, let's say over the past 30, maybe past 50 years. And what about the next 30 or 50 years? We're going to bring you the truth next. Plus, a liberal coalition of 16 states are suing the Trump administration to block the president's national border emergency declaration. A constitutional expert, yes, a real one, will tell us why this should be a legal slam dunk for President Trump.
This program is brought to you by Office Depot Office Max, where you can buy online and pick up.
Lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com.
It violates
We're going to use every tool at our disposal to fight him.
In every respect, the facts prove that Donald Trump is acting outside the law and declaring an emergency.
No matter what people think about that particular goal of his, it violates separation of powers doctrine.
Okay, that would be scary if Keith Ellison actually knew something. It was only a matter of time before liberal attorneys general took aim at President Trump's latest move to use emergency powers to get his wall funding. The conventional wisdom from commentators seems to settle on a simple conclusion. It's unconstitutional. But is it? Here now is a true expert on the issue, John Eastman, senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, constitutional law professor at Chapman University. All right, Professor, your response to those very glib summations of the unconstitutionality of the president's move.
Well, you know, if there hadn't been a congressional statute that specifically authorized what he's doing, that every president since 1976 has utilized, declaring a national emergency on the border that Obama's own Secretary of Homeland Security declared when she was governor of Arizona, I would give those arguments more credibility. But the specific act, and let's just put it up on the screen, the National Emergencies Act of '76, with respect to acts of Congress authorizing the exercise during the period of a national emergency of any special or extraordinary power, the president is authorized to declare such national emergency. Such proclamation shall immediately be transmitted to the Congress and published in the Federal Register. Pretty clear cut. Pretty straightforward. And, you know, President Obama declared a national emergency over the swine flu. President Clinton. Very serious. Yeah, President Clinton declared it over to stop people from sending ships down to Cuba or having financial transactions with the Sudan. I think this rises to at least that level. John, back in 2005, Governor Richardson of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, no conservative, he declared an emergency in his state. And he said basically that the declaration said the region had been devastated by the ravages and terror of human smuggling, drug smuggling, kidnapping, murder, destruction of property, and the death of livestock. It is extreme state of disrepair and is inadequately funded and safeguarded to protect the lives and property of New Mexico. So he was the governor then. So for him, that sounds like Donald Trump, but that's on the state level, state of emergency. Well, in fact, I think some of President Trump's statement quoted from that. Right. It sure sounds like it's exact same language. Bizarre. So, but you can find a district court judge, as we've seen in all these challenges, John, to the president's temporary travel ban, so many other moves. You can find a district court judge to issue a nationwide injunction thwarting the president's policy, at least for a time. Well, they have, and they judge shop. They brought this in the Northern District of California, where there's not a single judge that was appointed by a Republican. That's got to change. Yeah, it's got to change. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to see them issue a nationwide injunction. Although, quite frankly, the statute is not ripe. They're claiming that they're ripe, meaning that they law geek. It's too. Yeah, sorry about that. It's premature. premature. The things that are supposed to happen that are going to cause harm to California haven't happened and may not happen.
So all you law students out there, it is not a ripe case or controversy. Hence, the court should step back if we had a fair court.
If we had fair courts. The real question is, when a nationwide injunction gets issued, as I don't doubt that it will, how quickly the Supreme Court's going to block that injunction, because they are growing tired of single federal district judges in Seattle or San Francisco or someplace countermanding the President of the United States on dealing with national security
issues. Don't you think that the White House has got to get on this, working with Republicans in Congress to put an end to these nationwide injunctions? They can circumscribe the authority and jurisdiction of the lower courts.
Well, they can, and I think the Supreme Court is about to do it itself as well.
Well, Judge Bork believed in that, God rest his soul, and he understood the great damage that was being done by activist courts, and Trump has just had to deal with this at every turn.
Well, every turn, and it's not just activist courts. We're dealing with a level of activism that we've not seen before. It's almost as if a large number of the judiciary has joined a resistance movement against the results of the 2016 election.
They're part of the media, the political establishment, the entertainment industry, and judges with their costumes. John, great to see you as always.
Good to see you.
And while border security is vitally important, so too is something that doesn't get nearly enough attention when discussing America's immigration debate: the numbers behind what's going on. Steve Camarata writes in National Review today, Pew Research has estimated that since 1965, when immigration was liberalized, immigration has added 72 million people to the U.S. population. The latest Census Bureau projections indicate that future immigration will add another 75 million by 2060. Americans, particularly Trump voters, may not understand all of the ins and outs of immigration law, but they do know that in many parts of America now, there are so many immigrants that the incentive to learn English or to adopt American culture is greatly reduced. They also sense that immigration is remaking the political balance by adding millions of new voters who are voting Democratic by about 2 to 1. Wow. Well, here now, Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institute. Victor, well, Pew tells us that, I guess, like 75% of immigrants are legal. So why aren't more people talking about the explosion of legal immigration in the country?
Well, I think it's because they feel that it's an advantage to their particular agenda. We're the only, Laura, multiracial, multi-ethnic country that's worked since Rome. And it's based on assimilation, integration, intermarriage. And that only can happen when immigration, legal immigration, is measured and it's diverse and it's meritocratic, so people are immediately immersed with people who speak English from different ethnic backgrounds, and they assimilate. And the Democrats used to believe that. And as you know, they pass border security measures in the 2000s all the time. But I think what's happened is, don't you think they discovered that their agenda doesn't win 51% of the electorate anymore?
Bingo.
But radical demographic changes, and here in California, 1 out of every 4 residents was not born in the United States. It tends to make a predictable voter profile, especially when people come in such numbers and they're not diverse south of the border, and they vote in predictable.
Yeah, it swamps the system and because we don't have we don't have a public school system like it was 50 years ago, frankly, where people learned about the greatness of America, didn't debate about whether the pledge was racist. So it's a very different situation with the way kids are educated today, which leads to lots of problems. But, Victor, I want to stay on this political issue for a moment. Let's look at the map. I think we have a graphic of California's Orange County, because this was Reagan country. This was classic conservative America. Put the graphic up, please. 2016, you see what the vote looked like. And by 2018, well, the GOP got wiped out. It is blue. You saw a few little blue, areas, districts, but now it's all blue. And that's happened across California, at least along the coast, Victor, which, again, it was all Reagan country. It was Pete Wilson, Reagan, and fairly moderate Democrats. And now it's a super Democrat majority and people still fleeing the state.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you have 10 million of California's 40 million residents who weren't born in the United States, and they're told by the host, us, that we don't have confidence in the melting pot. We prefer the salad bowl. Then they self-identify by their ethnic, rubric rather than the content of their character. It's very strange because if we get down to the essence of all this, it was Barack Obama basically who redefined affirmative action, which really was designed for 12% of the population who'd suffered historic discrimination under slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation, into diversity, which meant class didn't matter, prior record of exploitation didn't matter, ongoing bias didn't matter. All you had to be was non-white, and that expanded that pool to 100 million Americans. 1/3 of the country all of a sudden said, I'm part of a minority, and I'm going to vote accordingly. It was a brilliant move on their part, but it really
it was smart. It was smart of the Democrats. It was cynical but smart in the end demographically. You had 100,000 voter margin in Florida. Texas, Beto came close to beating Ted Cruz. If it weren't for Trump's visits, Ted Cruz probably would have lost in Texas. Sorry, I don't want to hear that. It's the truth. Okay, so you got Texas, you got Florida. They pick off one of those states. Victor, what happens to the Republicans?
Yeah, well, they're in trouble because under the old paradigm, if your name was Giuliani or Pelosi or Cuomo or Pataki, eventually it didn't matter because you were going to assimilate, integrate, and intermarry, and being Italian was couldn't predict what your political allegiance would be because immigration was not, continually it wasn't. And the Democrats got smart and thought, open borders is a way to flip red states blue, and they did it with California, New Mexico, Colorado.
But Victor, they're doing it with legal.
And it's also within a state.
We're doing it with legal immigration.
Legal and illegal.
Yeah, soon illegal. But people have to understand this. We give 1.2 million green cards out every year. And every time this is up for a poll, every time, and Gallup polls this, people either want legal immigration reduced or they want it to stay the same. They do not want a glut of people coming in to keep wages stagnant. They want rising wages in the country, which is what the business community sadly doesn't want. Victor, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And coming up, the lawyers for the Covington Catholic student Nick Sandmann have just filed a massive lawsuit. And who they're targeting? Ahead. Plus, how much did the Smollett hoax cost the police and, in turn, the city of Chicago? A former Chicago cop is outraged. He's here to tell us what that police force is feeling tonight. Coming up.
So frustrated.
An important update tonight in the case of Covington Catholic student Nick Sandmann. His lawyers, Lynn Wood and Todd McMurtry, filed their first lawsuit on his behalf against the Washington Post to the tune of $250 million in both compensatory and punitive damages. Now, the complaint argued that the newspaper falsely gave the impression that the 115-pound 16-year-old engaged in acts of racism by swarming Phillips, blocking his exit away from the students, and otherwise engaging in racist misconduct. And that the Post ignored basic journalistic standards because it wanted to advance its well-known and easily documented bias against President Donald J. Trump by impugning individuals perceived to be supporters of the president. The dollar amount sought has some relevance. $250 million was the exact price Jeff Bezos paid for the Washington Post back when he bought it in 2013. Sandmann's lawyers closed their message with the following: "This is only the beginning." And up next, boy, how much did the Smollett case cost the city of Chicago? Not just monetarily, but in resources that could have been better served out in the community. Well, while total cost and man hours committed will not come out unless Smollett is actually charged, we are told they went well beyond what a comparable investigation of this sort would require normally. And what about the actual crimes committed since Smollett made his claims? These are the stats the police shared with us today. From January 28th, the day before the alleged Smollett incident, through February 17th, Chicago reported 22 murders, 134 instances of criminal sexual assault, 342 robberies, and 288 instances of aggravated battery. And what about the backlog of unsolved murders in the city? Well, back in 2000, the city solved 41% of murders that occurred that year. In 2009, only 30% of murders were solved. Well, by 2017, just 17% of murders were solved. So they got to focus all their resources on fixing that. Joining us now is someone with intimate knowledge of that force, is former Chicago officer Dimitri Roberts. Dimitri, what is the feeling among the Chicago PD, do you think, now with everything that's happened, all the man hours taken away?
Well, I can tell you, as somebody who's been on those streets many a nights and worked similar cases, it's frustrating when you have a situation like this where, at a minimum, you would expect the victim to cooperate fully and willingly in such a high-profile case, and one that has brought national media attention, and that's just not happening. So the officers that I've spoke with are extremely frustrated with what's going on, but more so, as we've talked about, Laura, on several occasions, it's taking critical resources off the streets. Well,
we're told that he's not cooperating with the police. His lawyer's like, well, he's being victimized by these allegations all over again. Kind of blaming the police.
Yeah.
He's not going to talk. How do they get him to talk?
Well,
Going to subpoena him?
Well, I mean, it depends, but I don't know that they're going to waste additional resources with going through subpoenas and the judicial process to get him to talk further about what obviously at this point seems to be some false statements that have been made and some events that we already have uncovered to be untrue. So I don't know that they're going to waste more precious resources and money. So just a grand jury charge him? Well,
Class 4 felony or nothing?
They could do that, but in most cases, given the backlog of crimes and incidents that are going on in Chicago, unfortunately, this will probably fall by the wayside once it's out of the news cycle. Not something I agree with, but probably the facts about what's going to happen.
Okay, that is outrageous. I would. But look at all the unsolved murders.
I mean, you know,
But people are going to keep doing these fake hoaxes.
Let's hope
if they can get away with it. If they can get away with what he seems to have done here. Wow.
Well, I think that's why we have to bring attention to these things. We have to talk about them in the national media, and we really have to shed light on situations where people are taking such egregious crimes like hate crimes and in a very heated political climate in this country, bringing issues and taking away advocacy around things that should be advocated.
Well, Cardi B on Instagram, she said, I don't want to completely blame him because, you know, like somebody that I was talking to, they said police in Chicago are racist. That genius, Cardi B. So they might probably try to frame him and make him look like he's a liar. Now, Chicago PD racist, Dimitri?
Absolutely not. I'm not a racist. I've served in these communities. I've served my community very well, and most of the officers are doing the same thing. I'm not saying that there aren't some bad apples there, but I think Cardi's B speaking a little bit out of ignorance here, and she needs to give a little more credit to the officers that she may have to call in an instance where she's going to need some help herself.
Dimitri, thanks so much. Great analysis. And up next, ISIS brides are regretting their decisions to leave home for the terror paradise of Syria. And the left-wing media is pushing their sob stories in the United States and in the UK. Famed British broadcaster Piers Morgan is here with live reactions. Stay there.
This
Total T is our most powerful man-boosting formula ever because it boosts your free testosterone and your total testosterone. Nugenix Total T helps provide even more energy, performance, testosterone, and muscle-boosting ingredients for even better results. To get your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, text SUPER to 231231. Samples are not available in stores.
Well, wait. Well, you can do something about it now.
I gotta try Nugenix Total T.
Text SUPER to 231231 now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. That's SUPER to 231231.
Coaster. They had beheaded people, there were executions.
Yeah, I knew about those things and I was okay with it. I did have a good time there. It's just that the ending's so hard. Please don't give up on trying to get me back. I really don't want to stay here.
I thought I was doing things correctly for the sake of God. And when I came here and I saw everything with my own eyes, I realized that I made a big mistake.
Sometimes the
but she was for the beheadings. Media outlets have simultaneously painted a sympathetic picture of these terrorist brides, now yearning for their homelands. So do they honestly want us to feel bad for these women? And one of the women you just heard from, Alabama native Hoda Muthana, called for the, quote, spilling of American blood. And it's not just happening here. The UK is struggling with the same problem. Joining me now is Piers Morgan, editor-at-large for the DailyMail.com, co-host of Good Morning Britain. Piers, now, you said of one of these brides looking to come back to the UK that she should rot in hell. So tell us how you really feel. I see her glib, response to the question about beheadings. And I can't even believe we're having to have this conversation.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, that we're even debating this? I mean, this is a woman who goes over there, marries an ISIS terrorist, supports an ISIS terrorist, breeds with an ISIS terrorist, and is, for all intents and purposes, herself an ISIS terrorist, isn't she? I mean, she's supporting the ISIS movement, the caliphate, the desire to take over the world with their barbarism, and she witnesses beheadings and appears to think that's a good time. Well, I tell you what, I don't agree that's a good time. Beheadings are despicable, medieval, barbaric, and everyone involved in that kind of behaviour has to be made accountable. And as we've just discovered in Britain, thank God, tonight, the British Home Secretary, the equivalent of Homeland Security chief in Britain, has revoked her citizenship in the case of the ISIS wife who came from Britain. She won't be allowed back in the country without a massive legal fight. And I hope America takes exactly the same view of the American ISIS wife, who, by the way, didn't marry one ISIS terrorist. She married 3 of them. 3 ISIS terrorists. So I'm sorry, Laura, but to me, this is completely and utterly nuts that there is anyone in America or Britain who thinks they should come back.
Yeah, we come back and we spend all this money litigating their case, so some court-appointed attorney who the taxpayers have to pay for argues some cockamamie idea about how she was like Patty Hearst syndrome or something over there, because you know that's what they would argue. But U.S. should revoke their citizenship as well. They shouldn't be able to come back here. You want to be taken care of by the Kurds or situation over in the Middle East where you're probably not going to get, the ACLU representing you, then that was your decision. Piers, I want to play another little snippet from that Alabama ISIS bride, and you won't believe it. Let's watch.
Maybe therapy lessons, maybe a process that will ensure us that we'll never do this again.
So, Piers, she's saying she perhaps could reform herself through therapy lessons. Invariably, the American taxpayers will have to pay for that, too.
Well, let's be very clear. This is the same woman who, on social media 3 or 4 years ago, beseeched every Muslim in America to rise up and spill American blood. And she particularly wanted to do it using trucks to spill American blood. And in fact, 2 years later, that's exactly what somebody did in New York. A radicalized Islamist in New York got in a truck and mowed down and killed a number of innocent people. So she was crying out for this to happen. That blood was spilled. Now she wants to think, hey, I'm sorry. I know that the ISIS dream in Syria is over. I know that my ISIS terrorist husbands have now been killed, and I want to come home because I'm now a reformed character. I'm not buying any of it. She was very severely radicalized, which is why she was out there, why she stayed out there, why she had these 3 ISIS terrorist husbands, and I think she remains a very clear and present danger to my ISIS terrorist husbands have now been killed, and I want to come home because I'm now a reformed character.
The kids to come back here, go to American schools, et cetera, et cetera. Piers, I have to ask you, you're out in L.A., about the Jussie Smollett hoax. You already get the sense that the entertainment set has gone kind of quiet for the most part. So why are all these Hollywood activists who rushed in to condemn this attack, where are they? Like, where's Ellen Page, who blamed Vice President Pence? Where's she?
Yeah, let's be clear, Laura. They rushed in because, for one reason, this looked like the absolutely perfect storm anti-Trump story, didn't it? It was a couple of guys, couple of white guys wearing Making America Great caps who had launched a deliberate and savage attack on a gay black actor and had done so because they were pro-Trump. And that was the whole narrative which Justice Smollett had told everybody. He's been on national television to reinforce this. He's given us a very clear account of this appalling racist, homophobic attack. The only problem is, it looks like, and I hesitate to jump in with complete certainty here because it's been a crazy story changing almost by the hour. But I think most rational people looking at this story now have come to the conclusion it's a load of old hogwash.
Yeah.
And that this guy has probably invented the story. So if that is true, it is hard to imagine
a
more
Hollywood
sickening
types?
And despicable. Well, where are they? I'll tell you where they are.
Yeah, hiding.
They just want this. They want this to disappear. They want this to have never happened because the moment it looked like it was what Justice Smollett told us, out they came going, oh, no, this is the worst thing ever. Now it never happened. Move on.
That's how it always works when the facts become inconvenient. Piers, thanks so much. Have fun out there on the left coast. And we're going to be right back with my Twitter smackdown of the day or night. Night just happened.
Shocking, horrible story of a race.
Twitter smackdown of the day. Well, earlier tonight, I retweeted a piece about a judge allowing a lawsuit to move forward for those who would like to move former President Obama's Presidential Library Center in Chicago. Well, Nona M. responded, "You're a bitter, nasty woman." Oh, aren't people on Twitter so nice? Well, my response to Nona: sweet, another informed activist burning up Twitter with facts and substance. Note her bio, friends. Well, her bio says that she was playing politics at age 10. I'm glad I was outside playing kickball at 10, not politics. That's all the time we have tonight. Pray for Nona. A new podcast dropped today. Make sure you go online and get it at podcast1.com. Shannon Bream, Fox News at Night team, take it all from here.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. We begin tonight with a Fox News alert. By launching his second presidential run, Senator Bernie Sanders is threatening to upend a Democrat.
People for a lot of money, a lot. I mean, asking people for money, people like to give money, but even rich people, they want to give up their money, right? So you're doing that a lot. So why are you still on the mission? Real quick.
Because there's people that are in need out there. It's you know, we're still at war. We still have people getting hurt, and we still lose them, and we still have Gold Star families each year that you know, we have to take care of. We have a lot of wounded still.
And you talked about the fragility of life, and you've experienced it in your own family. Your brother-in-law struggled with cancer. Your family struggled with cancer. You've gone through a lot, and you are going through a lot, yet you keep giving. That's tough to do. That's a Mother Teresa thing, give until it hurts.
I've seen a lot of need out there, but I've also seen the joy of just showing up and what that can bring, and I just try to show up and point people in the right direction to help these folks.
And humility is also one of your great strengths. Gary Sinise, thank you so much for being here. Congrats on this book. It should be required reading. Grateful American here on the Ingram Angle. Gary, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you, man.
We're grateful. Coming up, caught on camera, an important update to a story we brought you last month, and I have a very important announcement. We'll be right back. Don't move.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text-to-emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
Us lives here, where we can be surprised by others and ourselves. For a better us, support your local Y today.
Every family dreams to have their own house. This house changed our lives.
Habitat for Humanity is at work in your community and around the world. Through shelter, we empower.
Breast cancer is the leading cause of all cancer deaths for Hispanic women.
That's unacceptable. Breast cancer is unacceptable.
Join our fight. Save lives.
Failure is unacceptable. Together with Susan G. Komen, we're committed to reducing U.S. breast cancer deaths by half.
And we're going to do it by 2026. Join our fight. Save lives.
Failure is unacceptable.
Nearly 250,000 men and women in the U.S.
will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year.
That's unacceptable.
Breast cancer is unacceptable. Join our fight. Save lives.
Of your neighbors lost $500. Can you believe it? You shouldn't. I made that up too. Maybe you will believe everything you're told.
Not on constitutional grounds and not based on the facts.
But a member of the so-called Gang of Eight called McCabe's claim confusing and possibly misleading, since senior lawmakers knew months earlier that the FBI had effectively opened a case on Trump by investigating his campaign.
It's something that we talked about but never seriously considered.
McCabe sought to downplay conversations with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein about invoking the 25th Amendment to remove the president.
I made the decision not to include these comments in the book because they were exactly that. It never went beyond the realm of a brief, offhanded comment by the Deputy Attorney General to me.
McCabe justifies the probe, citing the Director Comey firing, and claims President Trump wanted Rosenstein to include Russia in the memo to back up his decision. But as these events unfolded 2 years ago, McCabe struck a different tone.
It was completely within the president's authority to take the steps that he did. We all understand that.
McCabe, who was fired for lying about his role in a media leak, is now challenging those findings from Justice Department Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz.
I was one of 2 people in the FBI that had the authority to disclose information to the media. That is an FBI policy. It's baked into the way that we run media relations.
The Inspector General uncovered at least 3 violations of the FBI Ethics Code: lack of candor under oath, lack of candor when not under oath, and the improper disclosure of non-public information about the FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Former FBI field agents tell Fox lack of candor is cause for immediate dismissal, and they say McCabe should be held to the same standard. Shannon?
Catherine Herridge, thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about why the former acting director of the FBI is talking about these very sensitive topics in the media blitz for his new book. You gotta sell books. So here to discuss, Isaac Wright, partner at Forward Solution Strategy Group, and former National Security Council spokesman Michael Anton, author of After the Flight 93 Election. Welcome to both of you. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, we know that Andy McCabe is out making the rounds, what you do when you're selling a book. I want to play a little something that he just discussed with Anderson Cooper tonight about whether or not the president may be something rather nefarious. Here's that interchange.
Do you still believe the president could be a Russian asset?
I think it's possible. I think that's why we started our investigation, and I'm really anxious to see where Director Mueller concludes that.
Michael, you were part of this administration. Is the president a Russian asset?
No, I hope your camera caught it. I was laughing as I heard that. It's the most preposterous thing I've ever heard, and I'm amazed that we, as a national media and as a political culture, have been dwelling on this obviously absurd point for 2.5 years, and there's no evidence for it. Now, I just want to say One thing. To me, what stuck out from McCabe's original interview with 60 Minutes, where he said his motivation was to put this Russia collusion investigation or story on a solid footing so that nobody could take it away or walk it back. That's laughable. A solid footing. You'd think that if there were a solid footing for it, 2.5 years in, we'd have something. And I'm still waiting for any evidence at all of collusion by the president or his team.
And Isaac, so far, we have had most of the folks who've looked at this, the Senate Intelligence Committee, one of the latest to weigh in on this, to say, like, it's just not there. Now, we wait the Mueller investigation, but until we do, it's nothing but speculation.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing I can help clear up right now for Michael. He was looking for what the evidence is. Ask Paul Manafort. He's looking at serving a life prison sentence. Papadopoulos,
based on tax and bank fraud.
All of these people lied to the FBI about collusion with Russia, and they're willing to go to prison to lie to protect the secrets about Russian collusion.
Not lying about Russian collusion. Dangerous. Let's be clear, because we know Manafort was convicted on tax and bank and fraud charges. So let's be clear about that.
And yes, let's be clear about that. The indictment in court says that Manafort was slipping campaign strategy memos to Russian military intelligence. That's collusion, period. Let's be clear about that with the audience.
He was not convicted on collusion.
No, he was not convicted on it. The court documents, though, reveal clear collusion.
Well,
they clearly state he was giving campaign strategy memos to Russian military intelligence.
Because what we've been told is that he shared polling information with Russian individuals. But Michael, I've not heard anything that equated to legally to any kind of collusion.
Certainly, I mean, keep in mind, the charge here is an extraordinary one, that the president himself is a Russian asset. Asset is an intelligence term. It means you're a spy, betraying your country, handing information, secret information, over to a hostile foreign power. That's just a crazy and extraordinary thing to say. I find it hard to believe that anybody could possibly believe it. And then you have to also ask yourself, if the president were a Russian asset, what have the Russians gotten out of him? Not much, if anything. I mean, this administration has been tough on Russia. It's sanctioned Russia. It hasn't pulled back or altered U.S. policy on Ukraine or Crimea. It hasn't reopened Russian diplomatic installations. In fact, it's closed more of them. It's kicked more Russian diplomats and known spies out of the United States. It doesn't seem to me that the administration has given Putin anything he wants, and it's done a lot of things to him that he definitely doesn't want.
Well, and Isaac, you know that's the argument that we hear from people who support President Trump, and they'll say also, I mean, he's done things like arming, you know, folks in Ukraine and providing them with a defense system.
Why is Donald Trump refused to allow interpreters or notes to be taken on a single conversation he's had with Putin?
That's just not true.
Everything is above. Hey, Michael, I didn't interrupt you. Don't interrupt me. If everything is above board, why are they so determined to keep it secret? Why is he the first president in modern history to deny those records, to deny that notes be kept, to deny that readouts be given of his conversations with the foreign leader in power?
You just don't know what you're talking about, and I served in this administration.
Michael, I appreciate that you served in this administration, but you can Google it. It's not.
No,
listen, we know that there, gentlemen, we know that there are folks. We know that there are folks on the Hill who say that they want to subpoena and get their hands on those notes on other conversations. Michael, what are you saying about that factual premise is not true?
There is one conversation that happened at a dinner after the formal meeting in which there were interpreters and note takers, okay, and in Hamburg at the G8 in 2017 that the Democrats are trying to spin up as some scandal. That is the purpose of those dinners, is to get foreign leaders into a big room and let them mingle. And there, of course, there are interpreters there. There's no way the president could talk to Vladimir Putin without an interpreter because he doesn't speak Russian, and Vladimir Putin doesn't speak English. In a formal meeting, it is true, the policy is that always to have an American interpreter along with the foreign interpreter.
Okay.
In a social setting like that, it doesn't always connect, and a sidebar conversation over dessert is hardly some kind of scandal that proves the president is a Russian asset.
There are lawmakers.
As hard as you want to.
There are lawmakers who are trying to get their hands on that information, so we'll see. In the meantime, Isaac and Michael, I feel like we could talk to you guys for an hour about a lot of things. So come back. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, new twists in the Jussie Smollett case. Reports tonight some of the Empire star's scenes are being cut from the hit show. As police say, they need to talk to the actor. They've got a list of questions only he can answer.
If he doesn't want to come in, he doesn't want to talk to the police, he doesn't want to give his side of the story, from what I understand, a second time, they're going to arrest him.
We've got the story covered on all angles. Mike Tobin is in our Chicago bureau with the latest in Chicago reporter Rafer Weigel, who himself came under fire when he expressed basic journalistic skepticism when the case surfaced. They are both live. Plus, the University of Iowa cracking down on Christian groups on campus. So 2 of them sued. Wait till you hear what an Obama-appointed federal judge just decided.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Us lives here, where we can be surprised by others and ourselves. For a better us, support your local Y today.
Breast cancer is the leading cause of all cancer deaths for
Phobic attack is raising new questions. Police say they want to conduct a follow-up interview with the Empire star. Mike Tobin joins us live from Chicago with the very latest. Hey, Mike.
And Shannon, it was a pretty exciting evening following the Smollett case. Late this afternoon, we learned that the Osundario brothers, Abel and Ola, showed up at the Cook County Criminal Courts building. Their attorney was spotted going into the grand jury room. Police say that ended up a meeting with police, prosecutors, the brothers, and their attorney, not the start of the grand jury. Then the controversial Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox recused herself. Her office issued this statement. Out of an abundance of caution, the decision to recuse herself was made to address potential questions of impartiality based upon familiarity with potential witnesses in this case. And there was confirmation that Smollett pleaded no contest back in 2007 in Los Angeles to a DUI, providing false information to police and driving without a license. The day started with that standoff, police insisting they wanted Smollett to come in for that follow-up interview because of evidence that came out of the interrogation of the Osundario brothers. Smollett's team didn't say no, they just made no plans to show up. The legal eagles watching this case say eventually time is going to run out for Smollett. If he doesn't submit to that interview, eventually police police will work to get charges, get a warrant, and they'll go pick him up. And as we can see now, steps are being taken with the state's attorney's office. Shannon?
All right, Mike Tobin live for us in Chicago. Thank you very much, Mike.
You got it.
All right, now promptly after it was reported, the alleged attack on Jussie Smollett became a celebrity talking point as politicians and stars alike demanded immediate answers on the, quote, racist and homophobic attack. So joining us now live from Chicago as well, someone who had questions from the start, Fox 32 reporter Rafer Weigel. Great to have you with us tonight.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, Shannon.
Okay, so listen, you took heat from people when you were asking questions as a reporter because some of this just didn't add up to you in the beginning, and you have been in there in Chicago covering this. You have police sources. What has your experience been like as you've now unraveled this thread, it appears, after so many people came after you for even questioning this?
Yeah, well, initially, when we at Fox 32 reported that Jussie Smollett says he was attacked. We weren't there. We didn't see the attack. So other media outlets that just blindly reported that he was attacked, I mean, you know, that's journalism 101. It's that old adage, as I said in Laura Ingraham last night, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. Also, speaking to Chicago police, and my managing editor, Lisa Vusco, has also been working this story with me, and talking to her sources at Chicago PD, they were skeptical from the very beginning, giving the extremity of the claims, the red hats, the bleach, the rope, the location, Streeterville, that nobody would have stepped in and intervened. There would be no cell phone video. They expressed that skepticism to me, but that's their job to be skeptical. I voiced that skepticism early on. I took a lot of flack for it, but at the end of the day, I didn't take that personally. I just understand that this became something very politicized very early on by both the left and the right. But yeah, I did caution, against some people, against the outrage without more actual facts coming through. And as the facts are kind of coming through, it appears right now that skepticism was warranted.
Yeah, and we're getting more information slowly. A lot of it not on the record. Some of it is on the record. But what we do know tonight is that the state attorney has decided to recuse herself. Can you tell us anything about what's behind that decision and what happens next?
Well, she put it because of familiarity with potential witnesses. So that's a very vague term. She obviously has some kind of connection either to the witnesses themselves, possibly with Smollett. And if that's the case, then she's doing the right thing by recusing herself. There's a lot of theories floating around. I don't know the Assistant State's Attorney, Joseph Magetz, personally, but I do know that he is under pressure from the mayor's office. And the police really do want to prosecute Jussie Smollett to the full letter of the law because they believe that he fabricated this entire police report, and they want to see him prosecuted for that. And also keep in mind, we're not talking about the federal investigation that's going on into that letter that was sent to the Empire Stars or the Empire Set. That is a whole different issue altogether. If the feds decide to prosecute him on that, that is totally independent of what happens with the Chicago Police Department. Now you're talking federal time. Now you're talking about a whole different potential list of problems. And there are no leaks coming out of that investigation. We have no idea what's going on with that.
Yeah, we have a lot more questions than answers on some of these things. I want to read something from his attorney. He says, as a victim of a hate crime who has cooperated with the police investigation, Jussie Smollett is angered and devastated by recent reports that the perpetrators are individuals he is familiar with. He's now been further victimized by claims attributed to these alleged perpetrators that Jussie played a role in his own attack. Nothing is further from the truth, and anyone claiming otherwise is lying. I mean, they're not leaving a lot of daylight there, Rafer.
No, and his first attorney, Michael Monaco, my sources are telling me that Monaco essentially felt that he couldn't work with him because Smollett wanted to come out with that declarative statement you might recall over the weekend that his lawyers released. And my sources are telling me that Monaco didn't want that, didn't want him to come out that strongly, and just felt they had a difference of opinion in philosophy. So it appears that Jussie Smollett and his legal team have every intention of fighting this, taking this all the way, until the 12th round, which means I don't know that we're in for any kind of resolution anytime soon.
That's true, because they want to talk to him again. So far, no plans for that. But Rafer, we'll follow your Twitter feed and come back and join us again when you have news. Good to have you.
Anytime. So thank you, Shannon.
Okay. A Covington Catholic student suing for $250 million, accusing the Washington Post of defamation. That story tops our Real News Roundup. Plus, he was a hit in 2016. But tonight, many Democrats are grumbling about Bernie Sanders running in 2020. How are they going to feel if Joe Biden jumps in? How would they each stack up against the president? Chris Steyerwalt is here to answer those questions and more when we return.
Are you going to lead or are you going to be led? You're going to be one thing or be them all? the breadwinner, and the best pigtail tire, the provider, the protector, and everything they'll ever need. Or are you going to be led? The all-new Ram 1500, Motor Trend's 2019 Truck of the Year. Come in now during Ram Truck Month.
Get an average $10,767 in total values on select all-new 2019 Ram 1500 models in dealer stock.
I'm mildly obsessed with numbers. So I started with the stats regarding my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Like how Humira has been prescribed to over 300,000 patients. And how many patients saw clear or almost clear skin in just 4 months. The kind of clearance that can last. Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to symptoms. Numbers are great, and seeing clear skin is pretty awesome too. That's what I call a body of proof.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Want more proof? Ask your dermatologist about Humira. This is my body of proof.
Accidents can happen anytime. That's why Geico's here 24 hours a day, every day. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Introducing new Fresh Start from Nutrisystem. Lose up to 13 pounds in your first month, guaranteed.
Lose your first 13 pounds fast with new Fresh Start from Nutrisystem.
Your 13 can turn into 20, 30, 50, even more. I'm Marie and I lost 50 pounds with Nutrisystem. You'll see results right away. Count, measure meetings? No, not with Nutrisystem.
Order your 28-day program right now and save 40%. We'll rush you Fresh Start. Get specially designed meals, plus a week of all new Fresh Start shakes free. High protein, designed to burn fat, with probiotics to shrink your belly.
Bye-bye, belly fat.
Plus FedEx shipping free. With Fresh Start, lose up to 13 pounds fast. Lose weight fast. Money back guaranteed. Millions of people have lost weight on Nutrisystem, and you can too.
Your first 13 pounds? Gone.
Go online or call 855-936-EASY and save 40% plus get probiotic shakes free.
Thinking about using a DNA test to learn where your family came from? Then use Telo Years. Telo Years is different. It has an advanced ancestry service with a better pie chart. But that's not all. Telo Years also tracks your cellular age. It's based on your telomeres, a unique part of the DNA that, unlike your ancestry, you can actually change. So you can take steps to improve your long-term health. Don't just take any DNA test. Get your ancestry plus results you can really use to help keep your cells younger, longer. Learn more at teloyears.com.
The unmistakable Cadillac XT4. Once again, driving is joyful. Starting under